Okay. Yeah, we're kind of,
Somebody's, one of you guys got your microphone turned on your computer. Mine's turned off.
mine was off.
Now try.
Hello? There's an echo.
I think we're good now.
Hello? Did we get by it? Hi. Right.
Okay.
I think we got it. Jeez.
Zoom is down all over, it sounds like, so we're making do with Teams to get this recorded, but you probably won't. I don't know that anybody, I don't know how many will be in. I see there's some people in there, Susan and Sylvia, but we'll do the best we can. So we'll just start off. Let's go.
All right, good afternoon, County Commissioners, Savannah Clement, Public Works and Public Services. So we came last week and presented to the board at our 1:30 workshop our millage project and the financial costs. We didn't ask for any approvals last week. We wanted to give the board an opportunity to present any further questions or concerns. Also, I sent the board the IGA report that included a lot of other information to review. So we're back today, and we'd like to start with kind of addressing some of the questions that were brought up last week. And then also if there was any other questions that the board had prior to moving forward, so we can move forward with the presentation after that. So we'll start with kind of Lauren's. She did, it is up on the screen, but she also, we had some handouts for you right up there. And we'll go ahead and start. One of the first questions that was asked by Commissioner Farrell was regarding the pneumatic lines. And so I know Lauren did some research on that. Did you want to talk about that at all, Lauren? Or?
Yep, it's outlined here.
I don't know if they can hear you. Sorry, with the mic and there we go. Perfect.
Perfect. Yep, so it's outlined here. The pneumatic lines themselves will stay in place. Some of the controls enclosures, we're gonna gut those and reuse those to put new controls equipment in. The ones that we no longer need, we're gonna abandon those in place. All of the controls wiring, it's low voltage wiring, it'll get pulled back and buttoned up and made safe in the walls. And then the air compressors will be removed. Those will be, the county can retain those, use them, scavenge parts for them, or put them in another building if they're of good condition. So that was one of the first questions. Any other additional follow-up on that?
Yeah, on the pneumatic lines, I remember you noted that they were full of oil. Are those lines, if you're going to cut them off someplace, you're going to cap it off so that we don't have oil dripping on a ceiling somewhere in the future?
That's right. They're not necessarily full of oil. They are contaminated with oil. So it's small amounts. It's not full of oil, but absolutely they will be safely removed and pulled back. That has been specified and discussed with the controls contractor.
In the copper wiring, I don't know what the recycle price is on copper right now. Is it not worth the time to pull it out and recycle it?
So the pneumatic lines are empty and plastic. However, the wiring will be pulled back to the wall. Anything that can be removed will be recycled. I am not aware that we've assigned any salvage value, but typically when we did talk about recycling today, there will be a recycling, all metal and all recyclable materials will be in one dumpster, and then landfill will be in a second dumpster. And usually you just get a discounted rate when you bring them in to dispose of them. They count the salvage value off of the weight that you're bringing them.
Okay.
Okay, the next question was about maintenance cost estimating on the next slide. I put a picture of books here. We actually use the online version, but it's the same materials. I did want to check because I mentioned that there's a national database. It's the RS Means database that we use if you're in the construction industry. It's very industry standard. It's been around since 1940. It's updated every year. I did confirm that those costs are not for a specific age range of equipment. It's an annual boiler maintenance cost, an annual air handler cost, an annual fan coil unit maintenance cost. So it isn't specific to a 50-year-old building, but the typical set of matching equipment for what you have in the HOJ, assuming it was in good condition, would be about $20,000 to $40,000 of annual maintenance per year. Okay, the next item is related to the cost that you're going to see in a couple of slides. I mentioned that we were hearing a lot of comments from manufacturers that there may be cost increases coming up. We are doing a project right now this summer at Hawkinson Intermediate School in Brush Prairie Battleground area. We were delivered cost increases from two different manufacturers, from Carrier and Renew Air. That's a Carrier for VRF equipment, which is the same equipment. We're actually going through Daikin, but same type of equipment, and Renew Air for an ERV. We have two of those going in the HOJ. How we discussed with the Public Works Department to potentially handle this is to have an owner's contingency set aside. So we're documenting what we're told the costs are now. That's not our money. Our contract is not increasing by that amount, but the county will hold an $80,000 contingency to address any cost increases that occur before we get a price. We have to provide substantiation for that. We've discussed it with DES as well, but it would just make it so that the amount that you approve today, hopefully we never have to come back and ask you for more. There's a pre-approved owner's contingency that the owner will hold upon substantiation. So the price is a little bit, the total owner's all in is a little bit higher, but Millig's contract value is not higher than last time we were here. So that goes to help explain the costs on the next page. So I'll walk through them for you. So the contract value that Millig would hold on this project would be just a hair over $8 million. The owner would hold $363,000 of contingency that you have to approve. We cannot spend that money without approval through a change order and substantiation. Previously, that was a little lower amount. This is 5%, 5% contingency. This is 5% plus $80,000. The last time I was here, it was just 5%. So it's 5% plus $80,000, which gives a guaranteed maximum price for this project. Our total not to exceed is 8.378. The DES fees and taxes are 775. The owner's all in is 9.15. Utility incentive estimated at 315,000, and the early adopter incentive estimated at 260,000. Those are reimbursable, so you pay out first and then you're reimbursed the money after the project. So the two of those put together have a net project of the 8.578. We did leave the annual maintenance cost at $100,000, even though we think that's fairly conservative, utility and maintenance costs together, but I think it's better to be conservative at this point than overshoot and have to walk that back. So feel comfortable there.
Really quick, just to one of the questions that kind of came up last week from Commissioner Dahl was the longevity of the building and future state and growth. And although I don't know that I can have a better answer than I had last week, which wasn't very good to begin with, is this will allow future comfortability, like we call it, at the building for probably as long as we'll be there, whether we decided to build a new structure, because it can take a decade, right? Or if we just decided to stay in the building. We kind of talked a little bit about what's the life of the equipment and how long, will it be usable for? And were you thinking 20, 25 years?
Right, yeah. Yep, 20 to 25 years. There's components that can be addressed in that 20 to 25 year range. There's other elements that will last longer. You guys have had the boiler in there for 49 years. We're going to reuse the ductwork and much of the electrical circuits and feeders that are already there. So a lot of those type of items have a longer life. And then you have, smaller pieces of equipment, but that should be in that 20 to 25-year range.
Kelly, can we go back one page with regards to the contingency?
Yes.
So initially, the contingency for the entire job was 324,000, and I think that's what it was. And we just added 24% to that contingency with that $80,000 on what? I just expected on material costs?
Yes, we submitted that. So we we made a table of all of the materials, and we ran a scenario of a 5% cost increase and a 10% cost increase. That was $40,000 to $80,000, 5% to 10%, 81,000 and change. So we recommended the owner hold additional money in your pocket if to cover a 10% cost increase of equipment. So it's not on, the 80,000 is not based on the total project cost, just the equipment cost.
And that's above and beyond, the equipment contingency is already included in that 320,000, right?
A 5% on the entire project cost is the contingency, that's right. So that covers, so contingency is used for unforeseen conditions. So if we discover asbestos is in an area where our initial asbestos survey did not find it, if we open up a wall and the as-built had a chase running somewhere, but it's actually a little bit down, it's down, we can use that money for substantiated reasons after approval from you to deal with unforeseens. You can also use it to add scope. Savannah and team have a couple of other ideas out there, and it may make sense. Hey, can you take care of this security camera replacement while you're in there and you have the ceilings out and you have your low voltage guy on site? So they can ask us to pick up extra scope, and we can use it to cover unforeseens.
So the unforeseen, so this isn't a situation where you're going to get to use up to that amount without approval.
No, we can't use a penny of it without approval.
No, everything's
That's the
approved.
part that I missed. I'm like, wait a minute. I thought that's what that was saying, was that you can use that.
No, we can't use any of that contingency without approval.
Okay.
I did explain to them there's two scenarios to use that. If it is a fast-paced thing where we need approval because it's holding up construction, we can do that with a field authorization. That's a form and a phone call, and it's quite easy for the owner to make an approval of, okay, yeah, move that disconnect to that, get those guys back to work. We don't want to hold this up for 3 days. That gets followed up by a change order. The change order has substantiation and all the documentation and a bid that goes along with it. If we see something coming that's 2 weeks out, we just do the change order and we do the formal process. So a field authorization allows us to make progress, not disrupt progress, and a change order is the official documentation that actually changes the contract. So we use a change order document. Any scope changes, any duration changes of the project, contractual duration changes, or any cost changes. Oftentimes we might have a scope change with no cost or no time change, or a time change with no cost or no scope change. So, it can cover all three of those things.
So on that point, we discussed the LED lighting. That could potentially be used for that if we decided to broaden the scope of the project.
It could, however, we like to keep that contingency intact. We don't like to use it to add more scope until we've built some of the project out.
Yeah.
So we make sure we've narrowed down a lot of the unforeseen. So typically in the last sort of quarter of the project, we're then starting to have conversations about releasing that contingency to do scope that wasn't originally in the project. Another way to do that, which is maybe not quite as clean, but we're all friends here and we work closely together. Our project at WSU, they said, hey, we want you to add this scope, document everything, show us every time there's an unforeseen, and we'll talk about it. And if we run out of money at the end, we'll go ahead and approve more money, but let's use this to add scope early. So we can work it out. We can work together as a team to work that out.
What happens to the contingency if it's unspent in a perfect world?
Yeah, it does, any unspent dollars at all under Millig's contract, unsubstantiated unspent dollars at all gets returned to you in a deductive change order. So the vast majority of our projects, we return some amount of the contingency. Sometimes we end up using it all. That usually has to do with either some sort of major unforeseen or the owner has added scope. Most projects we are able to return some, and sometimes we return a little under the contract value if we can do better along the way in some sort of installation efficiency.
I don't see it here, but you sent a document, I think, on email that showed if we went forward with the lighting, we were looking at about another 750 to $1 million.
It is looking like it's in that ballpark. So, and the problem that we are uncovering is that the lighting is a bit not standard because it fits into an unstandard grid right now. So if we replace if we do want to do the ceilings, then you kind of have to do the lighting because now the existing light fixtures aren't going to fit back into a new grid. If you just did the lighting, just a tube replacement, it would be less than that. But you would only do a tube replacement if you were going to stick with the
Existing
grid, the unusual grid and the unusual fixtures. So that's really a question for the county.
Yeah, but
To decide. We can provide you with all that data.
well, tell me, because we were talking about replacing the grid because it was more stable or
That's right.
earthquake resistant or whatever, and it was more standard. You could use different standard lights and stuff. Is that where the $1 million comes in? When you're looking at that whole thing?
It's the combination of both.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to replace the ceiling, you pretty much have to do the lights. And if you're going to do the lights, you're going to replace them with LED. And so you kind of have to do it as a package.
Right.
This is something I can bring an engineer in to speak a little bit more detailed. There are diffusers that are fit into the ceiling, and so those have to be replaced. So it sort of sets off a cascade of events where you have to touch more stuff.
Yeah, I know it's a deal.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to get at, if we let's replace that.
Yeah,
And however you do it so it looks work, is that where the $1 million is?
that is.
Okay.
The whole ceiling and all ceilings, all lights was in that 750 to $1 million range.
Okay.
And wasn't part of that, you were telling us that the ceiling tiles themselves are no longer, because they're not a standard size, that eventually they're probably not going to be manufactured any longer, and then we'd run into that issue?
You know, they're still making them. They're still commercially available today. So they're probably a little bit more expensive, and it is possible they're a little bit harder to find. You can't just standard ceiling tiles. If you broke one, you could go to Home Depot and you could buy one today. These obviously you have to order. I can't say if they would be gone in the future. They've been making them for 49 years. They'll probably keep making them. So, they're still going to be able to find them. However, you're always going to run into just issues with it being non-standard. Now, the other thing that emerges when you remove the ceiling tiles is there's a lot of IT and fire safety equipment that's mounted in the ceiling. So there's a ceiling tile with a smoke detector sitting in it. Well, now we have to rewire that and replace that and reinspect that. And so that's where the $1 million comes in.
Sure.
Is that you have to, there's Wi-Fi repeaters, and there's all kinds of different stuff that either sits on the ceiling or pokes down through it, security, IT, fire safety, diffusers, and lights. So that's where that's why it felt like a lot to me, but when we started going through all of the things that need to be done, it's like, oh, okay, I understand why.
What did we initially set aside on this thing? Close to 9 million, didn't we?
Yeah, the approval was 9 million, I believe, in the budget, because we were just guesstimating at that point.
Yeah, it was just a guesstimate, but I gotta be honest with you, I can't imagine doing all that work over there and still having it look dingy and dark and off light. Just to be honest with you,
Yeah, it's one of
for
the,
the extra million, I think we can find that somewhere and make that right.
Well, we'd love to, we can write a detailed proposal that lines out all the scope as you saw for the IGA. So we can clearly define all those scopes. We can clearly define all of the estimates that go behind it and the bid numbers. And then you guys we can bring that in front of you and potentially look at it as a additive change order, maybe 2 or 3 weeks from now.
Well, and what I like about it also is the cost savings and the ROI on the light replacement, we can actually see in our bill. It's not speculative. I'm not saying that the savings here are speculative, but we can actually see it in writing, black and white. This is what we paid last year. This is what we're paying this year.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Good Light I could just speak to when they replaced all in fiber in the office I worked in. It's a lot of difference.
It is.
And that building is so naturally kind of dark anyway, because there's just the way it's built. I just think brightening it up makes a world of difference, and it will, as Commissioner Rader says, it will save us some money with the LEDs.
Absolutely. Well, I can take those as marching orders to put together a formal scope of work and an actual cost, and then you guys can take that information and consider it and have conversations and let us how you'd like to move forward. But I think in talking to the team, they do not think that it will extend the project duration. We've broken the building. That's what this schedule is. This is called a TACT plan. It's similar to a Gantt chart, but it has it's a time by location construction schedule versus a Gantt chart, which is a task by duration. So this is a task by time by location map of how we're going to do the work. In talking to the team, they do not think it will extend the construction schedule. So I wouldn't imagine any real difference in things like our site superintendent costs or anything like that. It would really just be something that we could also get done while we're in there. So yeah, I'll get that. I'll direct the team to get that buttoned up as a proposal that you guys can look at within the next couple of weeks.
I would imagine, and I don't know the answer to this, I'm just making an educated guess, if we completed all this and it was done and we went back and, man, we should have done something with those lights.
yeah.
I'm guessing it's going to be way over $1 million.
To go back a different time, absolutely. And the biggest part is the disruption to the prosecutors and to the sheriff's. The biggest disruption is getting people's.
I don't care about the sheriff's side.
Yeah, I don't know that at that point, from a department perspective, it would make, we would recommend doing it after the fact, as far as the cost and scheduling and mobilization all rolled into, it would be very costly.
It's a little bit like the annex to me when we were talking about the windows. If we're going to do the work on that thing, let's make it work like it's supposed to. Of course,
Do it right the first time.
Yeah,
Savannah, on that topic, and you may not know the answer to this, but with some of the things when we had the fire chief come in, is there any overlap in some of the changes that he proposed that we needed to do that we could do at this time while this is happening?
Possibly, especially with some of the secure hallway conversations we've had, yes. I know we try to plan out a lot of our CIP projects after millings, either during or after when people are moved, to go in there and do their carpet replacement. So we're also kind of working around that. So that's definitely something to incorporate. Yeah, for sure. We did have another follow-up question, since we're talking about lighting, from Commissioner Farrow regarding why wouldn't we kind of retrofit new LEDs in with our replacements on some of those fluorescents. And I did reach out to our project coordinator, Jason, who's very familiar with that building and has replaced a lot of lights. It's because a lot of the lights, from what he said, kind of the mechanics of them don't allow for just some of those LED bulbs. And we have a surplus of the fluorescents. because they don't make them anymore. So we had, like, apparently at one point in time, purchased a significant amount of them. And so we have those kind of stockpiled as replacements. So for those that don't accept new LED, kind of like retrofits, we'd have to replace the ballasts on them. And that was not a direction that we had gone previously. And then having so many in stock, they just go and kind of grab one. So those were kind of his feedback on that.
Do you know if any of the existing fluorescent fixtures that the ballasts are considered hazardous waste?
Oh, that's a great question.
So magnetic ballasts were phased out and they're replaced with electronic ballasts. I know that we did look at that, but where you'll catch those is in closets, like spaces that don't turn on very much, and that ballast lasted a lot longer than a hallway ballast, like a ballast in a hallway fixture. So I believe that there's a little, you point a little thing at it and it lights up red if it's a magnetic ballast. And as far as I know, there's not. And if there were, we would just keep an eye out for them because they would be in closets, storage areas, or the basement where the lights don't run very much. So I would say, I'm not aware that there are any, but if they are, it's probably less than 5% of the, just as a guess.
Okay.
Those have to be recycled, properly disposed of. So,
Right.
and fluorescent, same with fluorescents, they have a tiny bit of mercury in them. They have to be disposed of. Our contract includes the recycling and proper disposal of that, plus asbestos or anything else.
Plus, Sheriff might correct me if he sees it different, but I think when we get this building operating like it should, as far as heating and cooling and comfort zone, and we put the lighting in there that's good, I think the old 911 and EMS and emergency management kind of opens the area for us again, where right now I wouldn't consider it someplace I'd want to stick somebody. Yeah. Do you think that would open some of that area? Yeah.
Mhm.
Would
So,
those bulbs be 6,000 K, like daylight rated?
That is your complete choice. The lighting contractor will show you the different colors and they'll make a recommendation, and then it'll be up to whoever is involved, whoever the county wants to have involved. We also, we're currently doing the Lewis County Law and Justice lighting. A lot of folks there like to work with dimmer overhead lights and task lighting at their desk. So in that case, we added dimmers to the new fixtures that are going in. It's really cool. We are able to do wireless dimmers. So it's literally like a thing that you basically like Velcro, like 3M onto the wall, and then it wirelessly talks to the fixture in that room. So now you have a dimmer without running an electrical line to do that. It speaks to the driver and it can dim. So we could certainly look at either specific areas or whatever, where dimming capabilities might be a good benefit to them.
Yeah, that doesn't seem like something that would be on like my radar, but I know in a lot of our cubicle areas and in our office, we have them requesting facilities to remove a bulb.
Yeah.
Because it's so bright and it causes headaches. And so a lot of our desks, if you look in the back especially, it's like every other one is lit up because of the dimming and that
They
problem.
don't have the capability of dimming currently.
Correct.
So there's all kinds of options open to you. The controls would cost a little bit more. However, the utility provides a much bigger incentive when you do the controls because now they know that you're dimming them. So at for example, right now we're doing LED lighting at the Lewis County Jail and the Lewis County Courthouse, the LNJ. They're almost the same square footage, almost the same amount of light fixtures, but the LNJ got like a $70,000 utility incentive and the jail only got like a $15,000 because the jail, they're on or they're off. So anyway, some of the additional cost of some of those kind of controls are offset by the utility incentive. So we can work all that out. That's why we would want to write up a formal scope, and that's when you guys start deciding your color temperatures, you know, what areas might get dimming, that sort of thing. You make all those kind of details once we get that together.
And did you say that we would be, if we did move forward with the lighting, that there would be a grant or something that would be available to us or added money?
We would,
reimbursable?
that'll depend on timing. There is a grant that occurs due in August or the end of August, find out kind of at the end of September or October, that could cover this.
Is it through Department of Commerce or?
It's the Department of Commerce
Okay.
Energy Efficiency
Yeah.
Grant.
Mhm.
I'm just thinking that through. I think we could apply for it if you received, but we can't have already started construction, and it may be an issue with the construction schedule to wait till the grant is available. We did apply for a Commerce Department grant for the same lighting scope and didn't win in January. So we're certainly happy to do that. It just might not fit with the construction schedule.
But wasn't there one that we were already receiving that you said we would be able to possibly receive a larger percentage of?
Oh, yes, the early adopter incentive.
Yeah.
You would get some money back on that. So I'll include that in the proposal, what that additional incentive would be.
Savannah, now we have their plan. I'd also bring USDA back into the picture, and because they kind of wanted that to decide what kind of things they could help us with.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
So once kind of the board is favorable of the plan and gives us approval for funding authorization, that would be our contract, and we would be able to move
Okay.
forward with USDA support, possibly.
So what you need from us today, if a motion to approve
Correct.
what you've presented. I
Yes.
think we also, unless I'm reading the room wrong, I think we want to look at that lighting, but that would be a separate.
That would be secondary, correct.
Okay.
The other thing I would ask for is the approval by the board to have a defined signer. Previously, I'm asking a second time because the previous board approved Mike Moss to sign the original IGA, and because it's a new board, I thought I should ask a second time for board approval for Mike to be the designated signer. And so what that means, just for transparency, is, say we have a field authorization or field form change and a change order, that would still come to the board. It would just come through consent. Or if it was over a certain value, we would come to the board for approval. If it was, say, more a heads-up change order, where we had time to review and bring forward and workshop, like we normally would. So allowing Mike to be the signer means everything doesn't have to come through the board in a public meeting. But what he's signing is the DES authorizations, who holds the contract. I don't want to make it sound overcomplicated, but Mike would be the signer, and then it would come through the board on record through consent, essentially is how it would work.
So the motion would be to approve what's before us with Mike Moss as the designated signer, is what you're kind of
Correct.
looking for?
Correct. And the amount to approve would be the 9.153 million, which is the total project cost, the owner's funding authorization.
Okay. So what do you think, gentlemen?
Make a motion to approve the project cost of 9.153 million with Millig for the HOJ project review as presented
Do you want that to include Mike as a signer? With Mike,
with Mike Moss as a signer on the.
yeah.
Okay. So we got a motion to approve this project. We'll designate Mike Moss as the designated signer. I really have no questions from the audience. There's a couple here. Nobody online. We'll just call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thanks for your work on this, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
I know
Excited.
when I came on board, we got tired of kicking this down the road, and the previous board said, let's not do it anymore, and this board is taking that same tack. So we look forward to seeing what we can do over there. Thank you.
Me too. Thank
We
you.
look forward to getting this building. On track. I've been walking it for about 7 years, and I know it's been a topic of conversation for a long time, so we're really excited to work on this with you. Thank you very much for the
Yeah,
opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't want to kick the can down the road. I want to bury it.
Yeah. Thank you, commissioners. That is all I have, unless the board has, or the community has other questions for Public Works or facilities.
I don't think so. I had one miscellaneous. Did you guys see, I think Tracy sent us a note. Port of Woodland is looking for a recommendation letter. They're applying for a grant to do some rail stuff down there. We did a letter for Port of Klamath for the same type of thing for some rail stuff. Are we okay with that?
Yes.
Okay, we'll have that drawn up then. I don't think there's, at 2:30, we have rural facilities coming in. So unless there's nothing else, we'll recess till then. Okay, all right.
Thank you.